say welcome to all who are in attendance and all who are on their way. I am Professor Leyland Lucas, the Dean of the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation. Let me express a warm welcome once more to all gathered on behalf of the University of Guyana, more importantly, Vice Chancellor Ivelaw Griffith, VBC Mohamed and her unit, PACE, and SEBI. Very often in life we have a tendency to express our gratitude to individuals for their contributions in life after they are not with us. We construct buildings, we construct all kinds of memorabilia in a way to say thanks. I'd like to borrow a statement from my mother, who often said, "Don't give me flowers when I'm gone." She would say, "Give me flowers while I live, so that I may appreciate them and appreciate the love you have for me." My grandmother has nothing to do with this event, but at the same time, I am grateful that we as a people are able to express our gratitude to Dr. Yesu Persaud for his contribution to business, to philanthropy, and in general to our lives and the development of this country. Again, happy birthday, Dr. Persaud. And on behalf of a university, a school, and by extension a grateful nation, let us express our gratitude to you for all that you have done and all that you will continue to do. In keeping with our program, I will now call on Vice Chancellor Ivelaw Griffith, not only head of the University of Guyana, but the champion of our Renaissance, to come and offer some words of welcome. Vice Chancellor.
Round of applause for Chairman Professor Lucas. Distinguished colleagues at the head table, ladies and gentlemen all, I'm reliably informed that the Demerara Bank has printed a special $5,000 bill, and that one of those special bills will be given to everyone in the last 3 rows who comes forward. But you've got to come forward in 2 minutes. So let me invite all the potential recipients of Demerara Bank's special $5,000 note to come forward. There is room at the front. If you're in the row that's last, or the second to last, or the third to last, we want to give you something, so please come forward now. A lot of people are going to get $5,000 note. Maybe a promissory note, but it's going to be a $5,000 note. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the front of your program, you'll see 2 A words that, for me, capture the essence of Yesu Persaud and why we're here to celebrate it. Audacity. And I'm reminded of something in relation to audacity said by a former, now long dead Prime Minister of Britain, Benjamin Disraeli. Benjamin Disraeli said, "Success is the child of audacity. Success is the child of audacity." What Disraeli was making most of in that part of his speech is that if you want to be successful without being audacious, the likelihood of success is not very great. And I think that it is not only a fitting title, what's replicated on the program cover. The life of Yesu Persaud, about which we'll hear varying components of, represents that audacity. And I think it is not only true that the successes of Yesu Persaud, the many successes of Yesu Persaud, represent success by audacity and other things. But I want to take the liberty of using the R word to which Professor Lucas referred, the Renaissance. Our university now is in a phase of audacity. A phase of audacity that says we're going to have the audacity to celebrate people who are icons and exemplars in our nation. We're going to have the audacity not to wait until they're dead to do it. We're going to have the audacity to celebrate with them while they're here. We're going to have the audacity to enable people who have been standing on the shoulders of those audacious giants like Yesu Persaud to come and give testimony to how his audacity enabled them to be stronger and better individually and institutionally than they are. Audacity, of course, sometimes enable criticism to allow puerile minds to exercise their lack of wisdom. And I recall several times reading criticisms when I was in New York and Georgia, criticisms of Yesu's audacity. And it's the audacity that has not waned with age. I called him on his 90th birthday to congratulate him. And he said, "Vice Chancellor, I just returned from Essequibo." I said, "Yes, what are you doing in Essequibo?" "Went to open a new branch of the Demerara Bank." That is audacity. Not letting age 90, which many of us hope, I certainly do, that I can not only achieve, but achieve with the health and the faculties still intact. Audacity is what we hear about. But as we at the university embrace our Renaissance to celebrate and go to places that perhaps we have not gone before as an institution, we recognize that there are multiple benefits of celebrating the audacity of Yesu Persaud. One of those benefits is inspiring others who may be reluctant in their audacity to let bravery shine. To let bravery shine in the sense that are mistakes likely to be made? Yes, but let not the potential for a failure prevent you from treading and being audacious. And we plan to exercise the audacity in regard to Yesu Persaud and others by celebrating them in the ways in which universities celebrate audacity. By inaugurating a lecture series in the name. By using the life story as part of the instructional material for our students in business and in the social sciences. By honoring him with the conferral of an honorary doctorate on November 10th at 9 a.m. in the National Campus. I have seen some of the criticism, why is this university giving honorary degrees? Why not? When some of our citizens or icons have been celebrated by universities elsewhere. Warwick conferred on him an honorary doctorate. Warwick named the Caribbean Studies Center in his honor. I myself have the honor early this year in March on the way back from India, and I'm thankful that Professor David Aberdeen facilitated it, to be there at the opening of a new lecture hall in the name of Yesu Persaud. Why should we not at the University of Guyana celebrate with audacity the people who have been audacious in helping this nation to be what it is? So I make no apologies for our audacity in celebrating the audacious. And I will be delighted to help put Yesu Persaud on November 10 at the National Culture Center. Now we know that the multiple contributions of Yesu Persaud extend not only to the business world, extend also to the civic world. And we will hear examples of the civic engagement, we'll hear examples of the intentionality he brought in his audacity to works within Guyana and beyond Guyana. Our nation, our university, has an opportunity to celebrate our own giants, to enable many of us, some of whom are in this room, from whom you'll hear, to live as testimony in the words of Sir Isaac Newton, when in his letter to Robert Hooke in 1776, he talked about the fact that he is able to do things because he has been standing on the shoulders of giants. Many people here and here have been able to do many things because they have been standing on the shoulder of a giant called Yesu Persaud. We want to be able to celebrate the audacity of giant Yesu. But we also are conscious that as a university, we need to enable community engagement to be part of what we do. And so when we hold the second event in the Yesu Persaud lecture series, this first event, symposium, is to celebrate him, we'll find an opportunity to let people beyond Georgetown, beyond Guyana, as we're doing now with the live streaming, to be able to have a recognition of what he has been and how he has contributed by letting his name and his life and livelihood live beyond one space. And so I welcome you to this conversation and celebration about audacity. I welcome you to this tribute to a person whose life reflected what Benjamin Disraeli said. If you want to be successful, you've got to be audacious. Happy birthday, Yesu. May you live with continued good health and continue your wonderful audacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. At this point in time, I would like to welcome former Prime Minister Sam Hines to our gathering. Good afternoon, good morning, Mr. Hines. We will proceed with the program, starting with the reflections on the life of Dr. Persaud. And it will begin with an overview of his life. Oh, I'm sorry. I had moved too far down the program. Thanks for drawing it to my attention, DDC. Before moving forward, we'd like to ask Finance Secretary Dr. Hector Butts to offer some remarks on behalf of the government of Guyana.
Good morning to you all. This is Paris to say my remarks will be on behalf of the government of Guyana. What I'll identify in that capacity, but more so, I would identify with me and my connection with Yesu. I'm pleased to be able to celebrate with you. And I trust what I have to say will identify with the government of Guyana. The occasion to be able to celebrate with a stalwart, someone who has been riding those stormy seas, someone who has been able to identify as that lighthouse to give direction as to where we should chart our course. Someone who has been able to stay with the ship, leaking as it is, being able to determine the changes to be made without allowing water to enter for it to sink. Yesu, I salute you. I speak of Yesu from the perspective of being exposed to him as a youngster, one who was grappling at a time when we had stormy seas, one who was grappling at a time when we had to be able to have confidence in terms of identifying the direction we should go. At a time when, being at the Ministry of Trade, having to cope with those changes that were coming about, having to cope with changes that seem to signal darkness sometimes, especially from banking and financial situations, relative to being able to identify that where we would get foreign exchange from, how our corporations would survive. I remember Yesu being there with Winston Murray, who has been my mentor, may he rest in peace. Being in discussions, being in arguments, but always being calm, gentle, clear. I identified Yesu as a speaker who was very simple to the point. Yes, Yesu, I have been one of those youngsters to whom you have identified with, not directly by instruction, but by demonstration. And I'm pleased to share this with you today. More so, I'm pleased to share this with you because if one looks, as I look at your history so far, and as I reference the stormy sea and the leaking ship, you stayed on board. I recall our conversation in the United States when you were in the presence of President Jacob. You said to me, "You're one of those who ran?" And I said to you, "No, I did not run. Circumstance caused me to be." I've never allowed Guyana to be out of my heart. And I've looked at your work, and I will bring on board a parallel which takes it back to business. I'm seeing your life as business. Yesu, you have been able to identify with what government hopes to have, entrepreneurship. When one looks at your work directly at the DDL, one will see that you've taken a ship that was shaky, given the time you had to go to nationalization issues, decision to choose which corporation you want, and the determination to pilot that vessel towards that beacon. And that beacon, that lighthouse, stands today in the sense that DDL, using that as an example, represents the hallmark of your efforts, of your talent, of your knowledge, of your leadership, of your skills. DDL, through you, is a brand. You have utilized the El Dorado brand. You've placed Guyana on the map as a brand. Every aspect of entrepreneurship is entwined in that survival that goes. I do not know the details, but I can see the results. You've also given us what we would call good governance. To run a corporation, to keep it on even keel, requires governance, ethical nature, probity, compliance, respect, especially for your client, your customers. I know for a fact that your employees are proud, especially pensioners. You have in the process also built what many would like to see, what we call an institution, because it deals with handing out service, dealing with its people, identifying where to gain the morals, the expectations. Your brand is known. And very importantly, from a finance point of view, you build a stalwart that will be able to give us good revenue, taxes. Those four areas, if we look at them, your contribution has been able to allow Guyana to feel resilient. It has been able to withstand the shocks coming and go through changes in the market. It has been able to say that we are on a path that permits us to have economic growth and development demonstrated from the fullness of a global company. Yesu, the true nature of you can come out in another way. You've written your autobiography, persons have been writing of you. But I think we need to write of you through your company. I think the DDL or your performance, I'm branding the DDL, so please keep that because they haven't seen the two guys of that, needs to be chronicled from the eyes of the experts. Permit a case study of your company. We read about the Wendy's, about the Pepsi Colas, about the Coca-Colas, about you name it. Those are black brands. But let's see DDL through the eyes of an expert. Let's do a case analysis. An analysis which would require that one sits with you and speak to you about the struggles within the company. An analysis that permits you to allow your employees to talk, their experience, your directors.
Can I stop you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
That's the second part.
Okay, that's good. And I would have been suggesting that you do that through SEBI. It's one of my expertise area, but I'm not promising to do it because I need some risk. But I'm glad you're the one that's writing it. But coming out of that, we'll be able at the University of Guyana to have students assess it, analyze it, and at the same time be able to allow us to better benefit with your contribution, your goodness, to the development of this economy, this country. So with that, I thank you and for being here and to be able to share with you your 90th birthday. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Butts. You speak about the ease with which it has been possible to work with Dr. Persaud. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a family elder who mentioned to me that it took a simple phone call for a unique brand of liquor to be produced. The President's Special. It took one phone call from an office, and the response was, "That's no problem." Before moving forward, I would like to formally recognize someone who will be playing a very pivotal role in the university and in the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation. She will be speaking later, but she is the former foreign minister and foreign trade minister of our beloved country of Barbados, which many of us may very well share an ancestry with, and that is former Minister Maxine McLean, who has been gracious enough to accept the Vice Chancellor's offer to serve at SEBI and at the University of Guyana as a distinguished visiting professor. We will now move to look at various overviews and reflections of the life of Dr. Persaud, and we will begin with an overview of his life. It is my understanding that DVC Mohamed, in her numerous roles, will be presenting on behalf of Dr. Ian MacDonald, who is not here. ABC.
Good morning, everyone, again. I'm delighted to be here this morning to be part of what is a wonderful occasion to celebrate Uncle Yesu. It is such a privilege to be able to have known him, to have been part of his life, for him to have been part of mine for such a long time. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you've personally done for me, which I will not speak about here, but thank you. When we were planning this event, Dr. Persaud gave a list of about 16 people that he said must speak if they were able to. And many of them are actually at the head table, so we were able to get them. But Ian MacDonald, with whom he shares a long history as a colleague and friend, is in Canada. And when I wrote to him, he said, Paloma, I can't come, and he's really sorry, but he wanted to be here, and he wanted me to read for you an excerpt from his foreword of Yesu's first part. You heard him just say that he was doing the second part. The first book on his life, called Yesu Persaud, Reaching for the Stars, The Life of Yesu Persaud, which is one of 3 volumes that he's writing. So here goes. I have known Yesu for 40 years. We emerged out of comprehensively different pasts. His ancestors, indentured laborers from India, mine, top colonial civil servants from England and France. His childhood in a sugar estate lodge in British Guyana, mine in privileged homes in Trinidad and Antigua. We emerged to become long-term colleagues and firm friends. Thus does the wheel of history again spin the lives of men willy-nilly into each other's paths. Yesu, I admire you greatly. Before going on, there are 2 things which this occasion enables me to do. One is to thank Yesu for his personal kindness to myself. He has been a good friend always, helpful in times of stress, supportive with good advice, warm in affection, looking for positive things on which to build. So it is that I thank him for his personal friendship, as well as for his tremendous contribution in so many fields in Guyana. And secondly, how can I not take the opportunity to thank him most warmly, myself and thousands of others, for his and his inspired team's creation of the world's best rums, in moderation, Ian, I can hear him say. What an achievement these splendid rums are. I have often said that there are at least 3 perfect things I have experienced. One is the beauty of the great Essequibo River. The second is Rohan Kanai's cover drive. And the third is El Dorado's 15-year-old run. This occasion allows an analysis of origins and the progress of an astonishing life of ceaseless endeavor and the remarkable career of multiple achievements. Untold numbers of Guyanese have benefited from the businesses and institutions built by Yesu and the indefatigable public services he has undertaken. The fate of a country is set on iron rails one way or another by implacable forces. Very few men or women live lives that bend the arc of history even slightly. In a lifetime of aiming at excellence and striving for the betterment of his fellow citizens, Yesu is one of those rare persons who has changed things very much for the better in Guyana, and he has left his mark on our history. This is a life which has been and continues to be extraordinarily full and active, and a career replete with widely varied achievements in any number of fields, including business, banking, enterprise development, public service, and philanthropy. I have said, and I repeat it here, that Yesu may well be the most respected man in Guyana today. His energy in good causes and the integrity of his life and work shines like a beacon. He is the perfect example of what a good citizen should be. Let me display one relatively small part of his work to illustrate Yesu's qualities both as a businessman and a good citizen. For a long time, I have served on the board of IPED, the Institute of Private Enterprise Development, which Yesu founded decades ago and which he has led from the start. I have seen Yesu operate close up as he built IPED into a wonderfully successful Guyanese institution. 4 aspects of Yesu's work at IPED illustrate the nature of what he's achieved in a larger context. 1. IPED has been an outstanding success. Yesu has built this organization into a $1 billion, well-run, internationally praised institution. His credentials as an energetic, successful, innovative businessman and entrepreneur are clearly displayed. 2. His integrity in this enterprise, as in all his work, is legendary. His reputation for fair dealing in a well-disciplined organization has been one of its great strengths. 3. The work he has done in IPED is selfless, in as much as he has worked for pro bono all these years. He has built his enterprise for the good of the country and national service. He does not get and does not expect compensation or showy gratitude. That would be like expecting the eye to ask for a reward to see, he says. That is Yesu's approach. He's a committed patriot par excellence. And 4, IPED's operations benefit the small man and woman in society. Those who have very little but are searching for a way to start in business. Those too poor to be good credit worthy. Those on the sidelines and even pretty near the gutter. IPED is for those in need who want to better themselves. Yesu can be rightfully proud of what he has achieved in IPED. So in one small part, I think you have a good portrait of a man, a great and successful businessman and entrepreneur, a man whose integrity is unquestioned, selfless service for the good of the country, and a concern and care for the less considered in our society. An important part of the account of his life is the humble beginnings of Yesu's steps up his career ladder, from early school days to the first most menial jobs, upwards to the most demanding but lowly employment, and to the odyssey of furthering his education and extending his work experience in England, to now what turns out to be a triumphant return to Guyana, where his employment soon attained levels inconceivable at the time he left to go abroad, and culminated into his zoom to the top of the Demerara group of companies, and taking a leading role in Guyana's sugar and rum business, as well as participating in the drama of the Booker nationalization. This is a remarkable and uplifting narrative in its own right. There are agonizing episodes also in Yesu's life, little spoken about things that we don't hear in public. The death of Yesu's younger brother, the distressing illness of his wife. And those things have helped us to understand what he has overcome and what still keeps him doing what he does best. But in telling and the tone of his life, There's a substance of complete authenticity that is never missing. You can sense a beating heart, but a sharp and calculating mind. Yesu is a man of flesh and blood, but to us, he is a hero.
Thank you. It's a very hard act to follow. We will now move to a view of the international impact of Dr. Persaud, and for that we will call upon his good friend, Professor David Dabadine, who has also served as a broadcaster, a novelist, a poet, and most of all, in my eyes, an academic, Dr. Dabadine.
Vice Chancellor, thank you. Professor Paloma Mohamed, thank you for this opportunity of saying a few words about Yesu Persaud. I know you've given me 7 minutes, and I will obey your resolution. I am in Guyana briefly to make 2 films. One I think will be a happy film, because the subject is of Yesu Persaud, a film which is entitled The Man from El Dorado. The second film will be bleak, and it's about the closure of Wales Estate and the predicament of the sugar workers. So I do apologize to you beforehand, but I have to be filming with a British and Guyanese film crew in Ivelaw and Wales in less than an hour. So as soon as my 7 minutes is up, I'm so sorry, Yesu, but I will have to rush. In 1984, the University of Warwick set up a Centre for Caribbean Studies, and soon after, the University of Warwick appointed Sir Sridhar Franthal, its Chancellor. He was at the time also Chancellor of the University of Guyana and the University of the West Indies. And from 1984-85 onwards, the university has hosted, the Centre for Caribbean Studies has hosted many visits by many UG academics. I think of the late Derek Bernard, my friend Carl Greenwich, who taught at UG, Al Brighton, I think Paloma Mohamed was at Warwick, Rupert Rupnarayan, and many others. Clive Thomas, for example, came twice. I remember he gave the Walter Rodney Memorial Lecture. We have at the University of Warwick since 1985 an unbroken annual lecture in honor of the assassinated Guyanese academic and historian Walter Rodney, and that particular year it was given by Clive Thomas. And of course we've added now to the Walter Rodney Memorial Lecture the GAFOR, the annual GAFOR lecture, 15-year lecture series on indentureship and its legacies. Now many people think indentureship is an Indian affair. No, many thousands of Portuguese, many thousands of Chinese, thousands of Africans after the emancipation, and dozens, tens of thousands of Irish people, of course Indians as well, were indentured. So I do thank Amina Ghaffur for allowing the University of Warwick to have an annual lecture on the subject. Alumni, University of Warwick, Winston Jordan, don't blame me if you don't get a pay rise. He studied economics at Warwick. Nanda Gopal, Henry Jeffrey, Baroness Amos, and others. Writers and artists associated with the Centre, Aubrey Williams, Wilson Harris, Pauline Melville, everybody really. Politicians have come and gone. Sherry Jagan came many times, Desmond Hoyt. Honorary doctors include Lord Ali, Lord Ousley, and others. I say this to tell you that Warwick University is a little outpost of Guyana in many ways. And then there was Yesu Persaud, who was appointed as an associate fellow and then was granted an honorary doctorate. And on the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Center for Caribbean Studies, the university did something quite unique. This has not been done since. It renamed a major research center, which was the Center for Caribbean Studies, after Yesu Persaud. So the center is now called the Yesu Persaud Center for Caribbean Studies. And then the university went another step forward, and in March this year, a brand new state-of-the-art lecture theatre named after you. And the Vice Chancellor was gracious enough to give a speech on that occasion. So, Yesu, briefly, there are many stories I can tell you about Yesu. He and I go back about 25 years, but when he came to Warwick, I had to introduce him. I introduced him, he was giving a talk to students, and I said, Yesu Persaud from Guyana started life, his working life, as an assistant rat catcher in the cane fields. And he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, David, you got that wrong. I was the assistant to the assistant rat catcher. He said I was promoted. And then, of course, we talked to the students. So that's a little story I tell you about how intimate Yesu is with the University of Warwick, but how also, just to remind us where he came from. I have nothing else to say except to say that the Vice Chancellor of the University of Warwick has sent me a letter, has given me a letter to hand to Yesu on his birthday, and I will read it if I may before I hand it over. University of Warwick, Professor Stuart Prof, who's our Vice Chancellor and President, whom our Vice Chancellor, Ivelaw Griffith, should I say our Vice Chancellor? Yes, you are. All right. Ivelaw Griffith met in March. Dear Dr. Persaud, on behalf of the Chairman of Council, Sir David Normington, and myself, I would like to wish you a very happy 90th birthday. I hope you enjoy the many celebrations that will take place in your honor in the coming days and weeks. You have no doubt received many well wishes and commendations, all rightly acknowledging and celebrating your many achievements and your service to Guyana. To these, I would like to add my own. Through your philanthropy, you have made an indelible mark on Guyanese society, and the businesses you have created have improved the lives of thousands of deserving people. It was in recognition of such endeavors that the University of Warwick granted you an honorary doctorate, and thereafter renamed its Center for Caribbean Studies after you. Professor Aberdeen has told me he will attend your birthday celebrations, and I'm grateful that Warwick will be represented by someone who's been a close friend and colleague of yours for many years. Many happy returns for this special milestone. With best wishes, Professor Stuart Prof, Vice Chancellor and President. And that's all I have to say to you, Yesu, the man from El Dorado. We will be back in February, and we will continue doing Yesu Persaud things. I have to think of what else to do now. I'm running out of ideas, right? Maybe we can name the whole university after you. What about that? I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aberdeen. I assume when you said you would name the entire university after Dr. Persaud, you were actually referring to the University of Guyana. We will now move into a view of Dr. Persaud, the view that many of us have come to know about the view from the business perspective. And so we will start by asking the CEO of the Institute of Private Enterprise Development, IPED, Mr. Yesu Persaud, to offer his views on the life from a business perspective of Dr. Persaud.
Thank you very much, Professor Lucas. Pleasant good morning to all of you. And a very special good morning to our guest of honor, Dr. Yesu Persaud. As much as I've been put in the category of discussing business, I'm here really to talk about Dr. Yesu Persaud principles of managing not-for-profit organization and using IPED as the model for the discussion. Dr. Persaud was quoted in 1985 as saying the following: "To resuscitate private enterprise in Guyana and rejuvenate the culture of entrepreneurship, we must start by supporting small enterprises." Dr. Yesu Persaud in 1985. In 1965, it was estimated that 70% of Guyana's economy was controlled by private enterprises. In 1985, it was also estimated that 90% of the economy was controlled by the state. Government controlled the commanding heights of the economy up until 1985. This was Guyana's failed experiment with cooperative socialism that resulted in the entrepreneurial and capital flight in the 1970s and 80s and the decimation of private enterprises. After it was decided to reverse the policies of cooperative socialism in 1985 to 1988, the market was ripe with opportunities for up-and-coming entrepreneurs, but they needed capital and technical advice. This is where someone with capital and access to powerful connections could have made lots of money on business or providing capital to small businesses. However, Dr. Persaud chose to create an entity to provide help to small enterprise entrepreneurs on a not-for-profit basis. This opportunity gave birth to the Institute of Small Enterprise Development that is today now known as Institute of Private Enterprise Development Limited. Dr. Persaud's influence and guidance over the last 32 years has significantly impacted the guiding principles and culture of the organization, and the lessons learned from his philosophy of leading and building IPED as a not-for-profit organization is worthy of consideration. I've managed to summarize 10 of his principles that he would have guided us with, or guide IPED by throughout his tenure. Number one, and I call these Dr. Yesu Persaud's principles of managing a not-for-profit. Can't name the university, but I'll name a set of principles. So number one, if you're running a not-for-profit, set a clear mission and do not deviate. IPED serves micro and small businesses entrepreneurs by providing advisory services, enabling them to build a sustainable enterprise. That has been our mission. The wording may have changed from year to year, but that has been our mission since 1985. And we've stuck to that, and we don't deviate. Finance is provided only for the purpose of businesses. IPED chose not to become a payday or consumer loan agency, even though the opportunity exists. We have one mission, and that is to support small business development or enterprise development, and we stick to that. Point number two, select a board of directors that are apolitical and willing to serve for free. Directors in a not-for-profit should not expect to benefit from the organization financially, not even for their transportation costs. This is Dr. Persaud's right? If they believe in the mission, they will serve. Point number three, appoint your team and its leader on merit only, not on nepotism or connections. Always hire the best. And this is one of his quotes that he normally tells us because of the people. Nothing gets done unless someone gets it done. All right? Number 4, apply good governance standards of transparency and accountability. Number 5, maintain good records and produce annual reports timely. IPED has 32 years of audited accounts. For the last 10 years, these accounts are audited by the 3rd week of January of the following year. Number 6, be a good storyteller. Select a few successes and repeat them every opportunity you get. And if you know Dr. Persaud, you know those stories. Number 7, have zero tolerance on corruption and corrupt practices. Number 8, treat beneficiaries responsibly. Provide services that are needed and ensure that beneficiaries fully understand all terms and conditions before a contract is signed. Number 9, use personal clout to leverage relationships for the benefit of the organization and not yourself. All right? These are all things that we've learned from Dr. Persaud over the year. And finally, out of the list of 10, focus on sustainability always. IPED is a not-for-profit, but it's not a charity. Market-based principles are applied, and strict financial management is balanced with strong social objectives. All of IPED's surpluses are reinvested to serve the beneficiaries. No profit is distributed to any member or director of IPED. Everything is reinvested. The above principles, after being consistently applied for 32 years, has resulted in an organization that has started with 28,000 Guyana dollars from simple contribution to today having total assets of US $18 million, or 3.6 billion Guyana dollars. To date, IPED has served in excess of 50,000 unique borrowers with more than 110,000 loans for a value of 170 million US dollars. That's in excess of 35 billion Guyana dollars. All small and micro enterprises. Our existing client pool of 4,000 clients we serve today employ approximately 10,000 persons, including themselves. About 35% of our clients served are women, 5% are youth, 90% rural, 70% of all loans are done for clients without collateral. It is worthwhile to note that 1 out of every 5 acres of rice land in Guyana is cultivated by an IPED-supported farmer. Good governance and the principles of Dr. Yesu Persaud laid out above certainly contributed to the remarkable results of IPED, and we trust that other not-for-profit organizations and NGOs can emulate these principles to achieve similar success. Be reminded that IPED exists to help those who are willing to help themselves. Again, another quote from Dr. Yesu Persaud. So get going, keep growing with IPED. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Persaud. Before moving to our next speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of several of my colleagues from UG, including BBC Reynolds, Dr. Fitzgerald Law, Mr. Amin Hussein, and several students from the Kane campus, and last but not least, BBC Scott and Ms. Sharon Ruchek. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Komal Chand, the president of GAWU. Moving to our next speaker, we will now hear from former Senator Ms. Maxine McLean of Barbados, former Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister. Ms. McLean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Yesu Persaud, Vice Chancellor Griffith, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to have been invited to participate in this inaugural symposium. And as you would have heard, I've been asked to come to Guyana as a visiting professor in entrepreneurship at University of Guyana I think that was not in recognition of my political career, but more of my many years of being an academic and an entrepreneur myself. I must first offer congratulations and indeed say thank you to Dr. Yesu Persaud, who is a true exemplar of a committed entrepreneur and businessman. I have to admit that I did have difficulty finding a term that adequately describes your contribution, sir. And therefore, true exemplar hopefully captures part of the essence of who you really are. Dr. Persaud has made a significant contribution to business and indeed the development of Guyana and by extension the Caribbean and beyond, as you would have heard from several of our presenters. His contributions in business, banking, enterprise development, public service, and of course philanthropy clearly demonstrate his business acumen and civil consciousness. As an academic and in my new role as a visiting professor, I must say that I was very pleased to learn of his recognition by the University of Warwick, of course, not only recently but some years, but there was a quote which I will share for his stellar contribution to the development of global education. And I think that that's something we have to flag within the context of academia. This recognition, as you heard before, came in many forms, but one that I would want to highlight, which we heard of, was the appointment as Associate Fellow of the Yesu Persaud Center for Caribbean Studies. It is against that background that I would want to suggest that anyone seeking to understand what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur need only study the life and achievements of Dr. Persaud. This examination of his success will also reveal the environment within which he fought to realize his ambition to innovate and to succeed. And I'm sure that by the end of this symposium, the persons who never fully understood the sum total of his contribution will know of that contribution. It is therefore my intention to focus on what we can distill from his decades of yeoman service to his country, the region, and globally, and to seek to identify the lessons we can learn to explore how the effort to foster the kind of entrepreneurial success that is evident in his accomplishments can be replicated. And in that sense, I would want also to highlight comments made by the Vice Chancellor that in honoring him in this way, in honoring Dr. Persaud, what we intend to do, and certainly that is part of what I believe the discussions with the Vice Chancellor and myself would have been about, that we need to utilize the full essence, the wealth of information that really dwells in your contribution. Because at the end of the day, what this country, this region, and the world can learn from your experience, your success, your contribution, is that we can capture a very wide-ranging research focus, or foci really, looking at you as the entrepreneur, as the intrapreneur, because as you heard in the presentation that just went before me, you would have influenced the way in which institutions function. And in particular, when we look at the institution which was intended to foster small entrepreneurship, you also would have taken to whether it was your insurance company, whether it was the bank or any other institution, that you would have demonstrated what we call entrepreneurship, the innovation that would have made an entrepreneur in the first place at the level of corporate Guyana and beyond. You also, as a social entrepreneur, you would have left us and you continue to leave us with a legacy of commitment to community and country. And all of these things can come together to create multiple studies to complement what you yourself have written and what has been written about you. Lessons in corporate social responsibility, opportunities to capture the essence of entrepreneurial activity, lessons in how a government and a country must create an enabling environment to foster entrepreneurship in a way that you yourself did not experience when you started out. So in my contribution, building on all that we have heard about your ability to succeed, your determination to succeed, your recognition of the importance of bringing along small and medium and micro enterprises, and all that you did in relation to philanthropic efforts must be the basis of research and teaching, and as such, I believe that as I listen to the tributes which went before, it is clear that there are a number of initiatives that can and must flow from the achievements that you've made. Policy frameworks. How do we create the necessary enabling environment? How do we build, as we like to talk about now, to use the jargon of business development, the appropriate ecosystem? How do we ensure that our young people are able to understand, from your experience, how to engage in business? Therefore, the writing of case studies on institutions that you've created, on the individuals who have benefited. How do we do tracer studies of those 5,000 persons, or some sample of those 5,000 persons who have borrowed from IPED? And how do we recognize that our students can be given assignments, not only to read about your successes, but to document and use as learning tools, all of those things. So my contribution hopefully is to, would have been to articulate a vision of how the university and the School of Business can in fact draw on the wealth of your contribution. I want to congratulate you and wish you again. Birthdays are celebrated for me in months and years, not long. To wish you happy birthday, belated and continuing. And I would end by saying to you that I do have a collection of Eldorado rum, starting from €5. Because I am a collector of rum. And I don't drink the ones that are very special. Thank you very much.
And that's not my business.
I gotta tell you, it was an interesting experience last night at the university where distinguished professor was delivering a guest lecture to 2 classes. And would you believe that the lecturer of one of those 2 classes was a student of hers way back at the University of the West Indies when she was teaching in the MBA program. So it's an interesting reality of how life turns and individuals and circumstances.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. We will now continue our program by asking I don't know if I should say the new, but compared to the tenure of Dr. Persaud, he still can be called new. The current CEO of DDL, Mr. Kumal Sandhu.
Good morning, everybody. And my apologies for being late, but I had several appointments that I could not reschedule, including going to the Chinese embassy for a visit. So I did a sort of PowerPoint presentation, which unfortunately I won't be able to show, but I'll talk from it. Basically capturing the initial 10 years that I got to know Dr. Persaud and worked alongside him. In fact, those were the formative years of what we know DDL to be today. So, I think the beginning was the mid-70s. In 1975, the company that Dr. Persaud worked with, Leyland Lucas Limited, was acquired as part of the nationalization of the Jessel's group of companies. And the following year, 1976, 26th of May, the Booker's group of companies, where I worked, was acquired. And the liquor interests of the 2 groups, Diamond Liquors Limited on the one hand, and Guyana Distilleries Limited on the other hand, was put together under the chairmanship of Dr. Persaud to lead the business forward. I was then on the verge of qualifying as a professional accountant. In fact, a few months after he became chairman, my results from my penultimate section came out and I was successful working and studying, and he instructed my bosses, without knowing who I was, to send me to England to complete my exam. 42 years after, I'm still paying back for that. So I will focus on three aspects of the work that, thank you very much. Three aspects of the work that Dr. Persaud did in the formative 10 years after nationalization. I'll focus on the corporate restructuring, on the people focus, and on the growth strategies that he initiated and that is responsible for DDL being what it is today. Now, at the time of nationalization, I must point out that Diamond Liquors was a public company. It had 36% of its shares were held by the public. And Guyana Distilleries was also a public company where 17.5% of the shares were held by the public. So we were not a totally government entity. We had government control, but shareholding held by the private company, by private individuals. And this was, in my view, a very significant difference between the liquor group and the rest of the companies which were nationalized. They were, by and large, wholly owned public company, owned by the state. So, I think the first thing that Dr. Persaud ensured everybody in the company understood was that we are accountable to the shareholders. Every single one of them, every small shareholder. And therefore, while we must be cognizant of the public policy, at the end of the day, we go to the meeting where shareholders assemble and we are accountable for our results. For the younger people today, and I keep realizing that I'm getting old, because when I talk about things that I thought everybody knew about, then I realize they really don't know. So, so for the younger people, a few older heads around will understand, I need to sort of recreate a little bit the environment that existed in the 1970s. Because if you didn't live it, you couldn't understand it. They were a very difficult environment. The massive exodus of skills from this country was taking place at a phenomenal rate. The lack of foreign exchange. There was exchange control. We spent many days sitting outside the office of the governor of the central bank to beg for an allocation to pay our bills. You can't imagine it happened, but it happened. It was happening at that time. You need to live it to realize the effect it had on business. And thirdly, there was import control. You couldn't import a spare part unless you had an import license, which was a bureaucracy you had to go through, right? So that was the business environment that we were thrusted in to take two undercapitalized companies in a very competitive marketplace and make it successful. We were primarily in the bulk rum business, very competitive segment of the market. Our brands were basically confined to the domestic market. And so the difficulty of managing limited foreign exchange and balancing two sets of shareholders, because each company had their own body of shareholders, created quite a huge challenge for us. And so in 1983, Dr. Persaud commissioned a study by a gentleman named Mr. W.G. Stoll, who's a reputable chartered accountant, former Commissioner of Inland Revenue, to undertake a study, a valuation of these two businesses with a view of us rationalizing and merging the structure. And so at our shareholders meeting in 1983, the 30th of July 1983, based on the valuations undertaken done by Mr. Stoll, we approved special resolutions by both companies to merge Guyana Distilleries and Diamond Liquors to create Demerara Distillers Limited as it is today. And we choose Demerara Distillers because we recognize that there was value in the Demerara reputation when it came to rum and sugar. And so, although one was Diamond Liquors and the other Guyana Distilleries, we went a very different route and chose Demerara as the name by which our corporate brand will be known globally. So that level of thinking at the time, when there was state ownership and state direction and so on, was indeed very innovative and unthought of. But as we move forward and we merge the entity to create DDL, we were able to rationalize its operation. We were able to optimize on the use of resources. We were able to create competitiveness that as separate entities we would not have been able to. Secondly, Dr. Persaud was a very people-centered leader, I call him. He recognized that our employees need to buy in to the vision, to what we were doing. And in 1979, created a scheme for employees to get shares in the company. 1 million shares in Diamond Liquors, 1 million shares in Guyana Distilleries. And we set about doing it in a manner that employees don't have to pay. So, with GTM, we negotiated what was called endowment policy on the lives of all the employees who wanted shares. 10-year endowment policy. And the dividends from those shares paid the premium on the policy and the interest on a loan that was advanced on the capital sum. So, employees got the share certificate that they couldn't transfer, and the dividends was credited to the interest account and the premium. Here's the beauty of that. If an employee died before the 10 years would have expired, the policy matures and pay for those shares, which then went to the family of the employee. So it was a very beautiful and creative scheme that we worked out at the time, and that widened the shareholder base of the company. We introduced in the company scholarship programs for high school graduates who work with the company for a couple of years and demonstrate the right attitude. We sponsored them to university, where the tuition was paid for, and during their vacation period, they come back and work, and during their period of tuition, they got a stipend. We introduced a management training program, continues up to this day, where every year we employ a number of university graduates who join our team as management trainees, and they are assigned to various departments, various managers, and over the next year or two, we look at their strengths and where they can best fit in the organization, and they emerge into middle management and today senior management position. Many of our senior managers and executive directors came through that system. We had elaborate on-the-job training program both for technical and administrative skills. We made sure everybody was covered by medical scheme, company administered medical scheme. So premiums did not go in administrative costs to a service provider, but basically was plowed back into benefits for the employees. We introduced group life scheme, where everybody had a life policy that covered them, and in case they died, their families end up with a lump sum. And we've had many instances where we negotiated to put that lump sum in a deposit scheme to fund the education of their children. And we took the Demerara Company pension scheme, which was in very poor shape, and even if I may say it as well, is today one of the most buoyant pension schemes in the country. Number one. So, very people focused. On the growth side, Mr. Persaud was a very aggressive in his marketing. He was an aggressive salesman. Never took no for an answer, and always found a way to get what he wanted. He always thought of how we create a competitive edge. So we built, because our business was fulcrum, in 1978, we commissioned our bulk terminal facilities. So we were the only distillery in the Caribbean that had a ship pulling up alongside the port and pumping 1 million liters of rum, and off it went to Europe. Very, very efficient. Again, at the time, we were ahead of everybody else. The modernization of our plant and equipment on an ongoing basis. I went through some of the annual reports of the 70s, and I was just amazed. Each year, we were doing so much in those circumstances that existed. It was quite incredible. The diversification drive. We started to produce vinegar from alcohol here in this country in 1979 at Enmore. Still do it today. Over the years, we've obviously saved the country a lot of foreign exchange in imported vinegar. Waste recovery and treatment. Again, in our quest for competitiveness, we look to see how we can create value out of waste streams. So, carbon dioxide that goes into the air, we capture it. We recover it, we purify it. We make dry ice, we use it in carbonated beverage. More lately, we have take the waste from the distillery to produce methane gas, which we've used to replace 50% of the bunker seed that we require to run the distillation columns. We diversify into different businesses using skills that evolved in the company, such as the distribution company. Based on the skills that we had, we set up a distribution subsidiary that is today very successful. And we utilize our key assets in creating new business, such as the property on the port. We've created a shipping company generating revenue for the company. So, over the years, we have done these things, many things. So I want to capture it into sort of the leadership style that I, from my vantage point, saw in Dr. Persaud over the years. Let's say he was a visionary. He saw things beyond what the rest of us saw. He was a people-centered leader. Everything he did was intended to benefit people, whether you were a shareholder, an employee, a customer, or a friend. He was market-driven. Although he operated in the state sector, we were focused on competitiveness and not being complacent. Although we had preferential access under the Lome Convention, that didn't cause us to be complacent. We had to be competitive because, unlike the sugar protocol, where the country had a quota. It was an importer's quota, so we had to fight our competition to get a part of that quota. He was an innovative leader. He looked to do all things the new way, and look how we do use our old skills to do new things. He was a results-focused person. From the time you start talking to him, you start working out bottom line. He led from up front. He took principal position to defend people. I recall in 1979, I had just returned from holiday. I think it was August month, and I stopped by the office to say hello. And there was a telephone call from a certain minister because there was a strike. And the minister was saying, my people are down there in the bus, let them run the flag. So I was there in the office and I saw first that. He said, not under my watch, sir. It will never happen. We need skills, they don't have it. And so I saw how we stood up. At a time when it was difficult to stand up to politicians, he stood up like a giant. And above all, I think he has a contagious, positive, can-do attitude where failure is not an option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. I've heard some very important things. And the notion of being people-centered reminds me of a very powerful article written by Peter Drucker a few years before he passed, titled, "They're Not Employees, They're People." Unfortunately, Mr. Subhan is delayed, and so I would like us to move to the next section of the program, one that we don't always focus on, the civic and political contributions of Dr. Persaud. And in line with that, I would like to recognize the presence of Mr. Malcolm Paris, former Minister of Education and General Secretary of the People's National Congress, who incidentally in our conversations always tells me he has never been a politician. He has been an individual who does political work. And if you sit and have a conversation with him, you recognize how important that is, that distinction, because he sees himself as a servant of the people. But moving right along, I would like us to start by hearing from our Pro-Chancellor, Major General Retired Joseph.
Chairman of the proceedings, distinguished guests, our guest of honor, who is my elder brother. I'm the eldest in my family. My father died when he was 63. And Yesu has filled a very serious gap in my own life for 40 years. I'm honored to have been asked to participate in this panel's presentation and discussion on the life and contributions of Dr. Yesu Persaud, CCH Kasi Crown of Honor, and his contribution to business, entrepreneurship, and civic life. And as someone said earlier, it's important to note that this is a rather unique occasion when we are honoring someone in his lifetime, when he can listen to what we think of him and his contributions. Dr. Yesu Persaud is many things to many people, and each of my colleagues on the panel indicated the particular focus of their presentation of this multifaceted, multi-talented, and multidimensional individual. I shall focus on Dr. Persaud's role as an exemplar, a mentor, and an elder. I should draw from examples in his autobiography and from my personal relationship and interactions with him for 4 decades. My focus derives from addressing in my own mind the following questions. 1. How did Dr. Persaud evolve into the icon we are now honoring? 2. What are the lessons we can draw from his life and career? And 3. How can his life and career influence others to emulate his example? First question. In his autobiography, we learn of his great-grandfather Ishwar's transition from Uttar Pradesh in India to British Guyana, of his placement as an indentured worker on the Diamond Sugar Estate, a Sandwich Parker and Company estate, which was one of the original sugar estate owners in Demerara. A quote from Reaching for the Stars, Volume 1 records, "Little could he have envisaged then that his great-grandson, Yesu Persaud, was to become in 1975 the executive chairman of Demerara Liquors Limited and managing director of Demerara Sugar Company." The young Yesu, growing up in a loji, I'm not sure, madam, if you know what a loji is, you have an idea. I grew up in a range which was a step above a loji. Young Yesu grew up in the loji of Diamond, and this was an environment controlled by the plantocracy. His father, Rock, was a cane harvester, and his mother was in the beading gang. Life was stressful and sustained hard work, conforming with the discipline of the estate and the obligations of family life. Young Yesu had his role to play, being taught by his mother how to cook and by his father how to cut grass with a grass knife, milk the cows and sell the milk, loji by loji, all before going off to Diamond Primary School. His interpersonal relationships were nurtured at an early age. When he commenced second standard at Grove Primary, his friendship with a classmate, Ovid Matthews, son of the Bush doctor and dispenser Albert Matthews, is recorded thus, and I quote, "Ovid told me he loved roti and curry. I mentioned it to my mother, who immediately said I should invite Ovid for dinner. She personally welcomed him. She knew he had never visited an estate family in their loji dwellings and wanted him to feel at ease. By the end of the meal, he was laughing and joking with my mother. 2 weeks later, I was invited by his mother, Mrs. Matthews, to have dinner at Ovid's house. I sat between Mrs. Matthews and Ovid, and the food was served by a maid in full uniform. I was flabbergasted. It was my general belief that only the white expatriates in the overseas quarters had cooks and maids. And here was an Afro-Guyanese family who not only had a maid, but a cook also. In those days, Indian and African peoples lived peacefully together. Aren't we living peacefully now, aren't we? Often side by side in the same villages. I recall my mother telling me how my nana, my grandfather, his grandfather, had adopted a black boy called Abraham Jenkins 20 years ago, whose father and mother had died a few months apart of each other. He was a very polite child, and my nanny, my grandmother, took a great liking to him, wrote Yesu. At age 15, Yesu took the primary school examination, or school living certificate examination. He was one of 2 persons from the East Bank Demerara who had passed. His family said, "We have to do a jandi to celebrate the success in the family." It was the first time, as far as they knew, that someone from Diamond had passed the school leaving examination. The word spread like wildfire throughout the estate, and that evening, he writes, we had a stream of visitors to our loji to congratulate not only me, but the whole family. It was seen as a success for the whole estate. He then entered Central High School, and on his first day in school he wrote that he was surrounded by a group of boys who all wanted to know where I was from, who my parents were, and where they were working. I told him I was from Diamond Estate and my parents were sugar workers. One of them exclaimed very loudly, "Sugar workers are cane cutters." "Ah, you're one of the estate people. What are you doing in high school?" I almost lost my temper, wrote Yesu, and shouted back at them, "What's wrong with sugar workers? All of your parents came to this colony as sugar workers, and all the people in this country, black, brown, and yellow, were brought to the colony to work in the sugar estates. After that, they kept away from me, and I found it difficult to relate to these boys who felt that they were superior to me. We spent 2 days at Central High School, and then transferred to the Modern Academy, which is upstairs of a hardware store on the northern side of Regent and Alexander Streets. From these excerpts, you would glean that Yesu came from extremely humble circumstances, but he was ambitious, diligent, and with the support of his family, he was able to attend primary school, commence secondary school, but after 9 months realized that his parents were making a heavy sacrifice in sending him to high school. So he decided to quit school and look for a job. In 1944, still the Second World War going on, at age 16, he was recruited for service at Atkinson Field, then leased by the British to the Americans in 1942, and assigned to the KP. He didn't know what KP was until he actually went there and found that he was kitchen police. Which meant that he worked at the canteen and bar. After contracting malaria in March 1945, he was sent home, and after receiving treatment, he was asked to help out at a grocery store in Stafford Market. And Yesu states, "It was my first experience of dealing with the public, and the exposure did me a world of good in years to come." Still job hunting, he states that in the 1940s, the employment policy of the banks, insurance companies, and expatriate industrial and commercial companies in Guyana was largely based on skin color. The first to be employed were the Europeans, followed by the Portuguese, mulattoes or red people, Chinese, and then in very rare cases, Indians and Africans. If they were employed, the latter two groups, Indians and Africans, were never seen in the front of the organization, but were kept in the storeroom or the warehouse. Some friends had warned him of the futility of even trying to get a job in those color-conscious organizations, but he still felt that he needed at least to try. After failing to get any positive response, he finally decided to contact a few Indian-owned stores in Georgetown, wrote an application letter, and took it personally to one Mr. Parsram, an Indian national who owned Parsram's store in Water Street. He said to Yesu, "You look honest and seem to be a bright young man, and once you prove yourself, I intend to teach you the trade." Yesu's parents were overjoyed at his good fortune in securing employment, a scarce commodity in those days, especially for a country lad. And he writes, "They told me to always give of my best in this and all other jobs in future." In 1947, he worked as a sanitation assistant at Diamond Estate. His job entailed spraying a chemical known as barweed to kill Tanya bush, and to inspect drains, culverts, and outlets leading to the river to ensure that the water flowed freely to prevent mosquitoes from breeding. Some of you look surprised. You thought that all the Komal said meant he dropped with a silver spoon from his mouth. His diligence was acknowledged, and he was sent to Leonora on a 1-week training program to learn how to use a new rat bait made of oats laced with poison to exterminate rats that infest cane fields and destroy the sugar cultivation. He found that rat extermination work was boring. I agree with you. And he was able to switch to the spray gun. 10 months later, he was told by the estate manager, Diamond Estate, Mr. George Greenfield, after whom Greenfield Park is named, that efficient scheduling of the transportation of cane pond stone from the factory in the grinding season was the key to maximum sugar production. He then asked me to take on the challenging job as assistant to the pond captain. He also functioned as assistant to the driver of the crew of Guyana. And then in 1954, a supervisor of a gang of men who were clearing bush at Garden of Eden. later that year he went back to Diamond as fund captain. At that stage he decided, I have to review my life, review my own situation. After 7 years and a variety of jobs on Diamond Estate, he realized that he was one of 3,000 workers on the estate, most of whom would have to live and slave away for the rest of their lives. And he writes, but I had every intention of escaping from the tentacles of King Sugar. Opportunities, however, were limited in Guyana, since the color bar was still a major feature of the employment in Georgetown by the larger firms. And Yesu states, the answer for me was simple. Start making preparations to study in the UK. It would have to be done the hard way by combining work and study. But one way or another, I would get to England and make a new life for my family. So in analyzing his pre-United Kingdom life, 1928 when he was born to 1955, it is evident that Yesu was fully grounded in the estate system. I myself am a product of the estate, its culture and dynamics. He benefited from his parental upbringing and the attention and support of his extended family. He took his education seriously. His friendships extended to other ethnic groups. He was unafraid to venture into diverse placement opportunities on the estate, in small family-run businesses, and at a large and complex military base at Atkinson Field. He spoke up for what he knew was right and demonstrated at an early age his interest in a systems approach to management, but favored a people-centered human resources style of interpersonal relations, gleaned from his association with persons such as George Greenfield and later Sir Jock Campbell. He was exposed to and experienced discriminatory employment practices, which influenced him in later life to be an advocate of the dignity of labor. These experiences and attributes, I posit, shaped the personal value system adopted by the young Yesu Persaud and provided him with a foundation on which to survive and excel in London. Alone in London, away from his family's support structure, he became depressed and wanted to throw in the towel and return to British Guyana. In his darkest time, he remembered the teachings of Lord Buddha. The greatest of conquests is the conquest of self. If a man conquers 1 trillion things in the world, he is no conqueror unless he conquers the self within him. His ambition to rise above his circumstances through education and qualifications was complemented by his adaptability, his versatility, his courage, his loyalty and commitment, and his deep spiritual and family values. What are the lessons we can draw from his life and career? Growing up on a sugar estate at that time, experiencing all of the challenges associated with a stratified society, with color bar, discriminatory employment practices, and poverty, it would have been a miracle if the young Yesu Persaud envisaged that he would rise to the zenith of the business world. Many of his generation would have given up and considered their station in life to be bound to their estate and rise to the highest level then possible, that of field supervisor. He seized every opportunity that presented itself to learn, to master his trade or portfolio of responsibilities. He humbled himself without losing his dignity in order to earn the admiration and respect of his functional superiors, who then presented him with other opportunities and higher responsibilities. He understood the concepts of justice, of fair play, the dignity of labor, respect for diversity of ethnicity, religion, and culture, and he actively embraced and practiced these values in his interpersonal relations and his management style. He was a loving and caring husband. I'm sorry, Auntie Baba, his wife, is not here. Father and son and sibling. His family life and his impressive local and international network of friends and contacts facilitated his professional development and success in the corporate world. He was a trusted colleague and advisor to ministers and presidents, including President Jimmy Carter, who was instrumental in 1990, 1991, and 1992 to work in coordination with Yesu, the late Reverend George, Bishop George, and others, our former President and Prime Minister, Mr. Samuel Hines of GUARD. He was a champion of the underdog, invested in the training and exposure of his human resources, shared his vision with them, and allowed them the space for research and development that would lead to diversification, development of niche markets, competitiveness in the marketplace, and profitability. His personal example of integrity, forthrightness, lack of an ostentatious lifestyle, and arrogance makes him a revered exemplar to all those who have had the opportunity to interact with him and to benefit from his mentoring, his counseling, and his guidance. And finally, how can his life and career influence others to emulate his example? Fortunately, as we were told earlier, Dr. Yesu Persaud leaves a rich legacy of references to guide those who wish to learn from his example and to seek to emulate him in their professional and personal lives. Universities such as Warwick, University of the West Indies, and the University of Guyana have recognized the diversity of his contributions, the caliber of his leadership, and the values he has laid down as a signpost for success in business, good governance, democracy, tolerance, respect, philanthropy, and humanity. The publication of his autobiography, Reaching for the Stars, Volume 1, and soon to be available Volume 2, provides insights into the experiences that have shaped his life, his values, his vision, and his decisions. I urge you to obtain copies of these volumes and read them. The lives he touched in the workplace, in the fields, factories, boardrooms, and corridors of authority, in the temples and other places of religious worship, through his TV programs, Eye on the Issues, the students benefiting from scholarships, and the citizens who are lifting themselves out of poverty through the support of agencies such as IPED. These, in time, will be the generational legacy and the manifestation of the goodness and worth of this man we honor here today. He is now, and deservedly so, recognized as an elder at the national level. It is my hope, Dr. Yesu, that you will have many years still to continue to provide of your wisdom and your experience to help us to realize those elusive national goals which are embedded in your psyche and manifested in the way that you live your life, your accomplishments, and your humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Major General Retired Joseph. We will now ask Professor of Physiology in the School of Forensic and Applied Sciences, Professor Jai Paul Singh, to offer his comments on the life and contributions of Dr. Yesu Persaud.
Good morning. Oh, is it afternoon? Midday now, exactly. Good midday. I was really moved just now from what Joe said, because many of us in this hall here have the same background. Exactly. I'm a Logi man. I come from a sugar estate, and also we had rice field as well, so more or less. And I've started to write my autobiography as well, like you. And we have to do these things. My name is Jai Paul Singh, and I come from the west coast of the Morale. And I did my degree at UG, and then I had to pack my baggage and to go to England to study, to get further education. And I come back to Guyana quite often to help out as much as I can. I have students here, and it so happened on this particular occasion, I'm here to honor our colleague here. Professor Lucas, I'm Chairman, Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, friends, dignitaries, colleagues, fellow Guyanese. As I said, I'm very grateful. I spoke to the Vice Chancellor, sent an email to him, and he said, okay, fine, I'll give you a chance to say a few words on behalf of not only myself, but of someone very important. And what Paloma said to me, make sure you have the word icon, legacies, and so on. And who is more iconic than Dr. Yesu Persaud. Iconic in business, iconic in industries, iconic in banking, iconic in accountancy, iconic for his fight for democracy and human rights, iconic for his desire to alleviate poverty, and as we heard from Joe, to help the very poor. And it's an honor for me to be here, sir, to celebrate. I think you celebrate your birthday as well as your mountainous, I was looking for a better word, mountainous, and you're still climbing the mountain, achievements. From a humble beginning, which we heard just now, and you're still continuing doing the same, take us higher level, right on top of the mountain. I do not think that there is any other Guyanese who has achieved so much during his or her lifetime as you, sir, Dr. Yesu Persaud. To me, this is like the start of the beginning of your legacy, and I think your legacy will live forever in Guyana. As I said just now, I am here today representing my deceased eldest brother, who would have been here today. Unfortunately, he died at the age of 64. And as you know, we from the west coast of Demerara. Surname is Singh. And my brother used to work at Lenora Estate for many years in the late 50s, the early 60s. And then, of course, he went to Georgetown to work with you. And he spent a long time working under your directorship, your leadership, your mentorship, your directorship. We call it director of study. Your professor and a student is working with you. I'll talk about professorship just now. And your guidance as an apprentice. So he was probably one of your first apprentices. He was one of the first students you trained, as what Joe said. He talked about himself, but the way my brother is concerned, and you guided him the way forward to become an excellent chartered accountant just like you, emulating you. He left Guyana, and just like Joe, you said to him, yeah. Yes? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You do not sing. Wyatt sing. Wyatt sing. Yes, I was just about to say that. Yes, he had a scholarship and he went. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. What he has done is God sent, man. So Yadunata Wine Singh. I first met you in late 1960 when Wine introduced me to you. Actually, when I look at the photograph over there, you look like a film star. So I met you then. Then I had another occasion when Laila Kisoon was 80th birthday. We sat at the first table, me and you, and we were chatting, and all we were chatting about YN. Then Prime Minister Hanks came and joined us. We had half of the table there. Can you remember, Prime Minister, former Prime Minister? We talked about politics and so on. Then I met you on several other occasions, because I came, every time I come here, they always have the arrival day, and I met you recently when David gave the talk. I was there listening to David. David is a good friend of mine, David Aberdeen. And I met you a few other times. I don't like to tell the audience what I noticed, what you were doing, but I will tell you later on about this. I passed by your house in your garden and was wondering what you were doing there, but I will tell you what I think you were doing. So in London, you were always the topic of conversation. And Wyan and all his friends and your former students, they never forgot you, sir. They always think about you. You were the guru. You were a big brother. You're always a big brother, a father figure, a mentor, a God-sent human being. They all respect you tremendously for your vision in business and your entrepreneurship. Paloma said I must say this word. Your humanitarianism, your kindness, your humility, your concern for the poor, of course for democracy in Ghana, and all the things you have done for others, including donations, charity work, irrespective of personal sacrifice. You will sacrifice to do anything. But Dr. Persaud, I want to say what my brother would have said if he was still alive. He would have said, you're a man of all seasons. a person like you is rare in life. You are a very kind man and a true son of Guyana. You have made outstanding achievements and received numerous awards, national, international, and you deserve all these. You have made tremendous contribution to our society and to humanity. You have helped many poor kids, children, to get good education via your generous donation, and Joe mentioned that. And of all of us, as you know, education is the best gift you could give to your child. It's almost like donating a kidney or a heart to someone, because nobody takes education away from you. That's what Mom used to tell us, although we grew up in Sugar State. They always want to give us good education, and education like money. The more you get, the more you want. And that's why me and my Vice Chancellor colleague here had to go abroad to get more education. Isn't that true? So that's very important for the audience. Okay, and I said that at the Borbis campus when the Vice Chancellor invited me to give the graduation lecture a few years ago. You have helped people to attain a better quality of life by your personal donation and charities. One would have said that you have a lot of Lord Krishna, Lord Buddha, and Lord Rama in you. And I think in your heart, and I think this is true. Finally, one would have said, thank you, my big brother, for everything you have done for me. What about your awards now? I've noticed, did you know I read you have 28 national awards, international national awards, and you're involved in 60 different organizations and so on. You have these two big doctor of literature. I know one other guy in this country who has the same, a doctor of science and a doctor of literature. I was responsible for him getting that. And he had over 6 PhDs. I can't call it name. Of course, he and I are the only guys with a degree in doctor of science. In fact, I'm the only person in doctor of science at my university. That's the highest award any professor could get. So you have all these awards, and of course, so many. But I think you still need more. I think you still need more. So I would like to suggest in this one here now. The Vice Chancellor already suggested, and I Googled, yes, University of Guyana, sir, can confer. So forget the people who said anything. You can confer the Doctor of Science, Doctor of Literature, and so on. So he's already said that, but I'm asking him something else to give you. I'm asking him, just like Maxine McLean just now, that he should give you an honorary professorship, visiting professor, and he can do that. He has the power to do that. Because I've come to that just now. Why? I won't be too long, Paloma. I'm also proposing to the University of Guyana, possibly Guyana government, to name streets, highways, buildings, monuments, and famous landmarks after your name, and not only you know, other famous Guyanese. I do hope that when they establish this building at Georgetown, which he has given $1 million to build a clinical building at Georgetown Hospital. And I'm hoping that some money is left over so we can train a few specialist doctors, send on fellowships, who is a cardiologist, a nephrologist, and so on. If that is possible, we can look at other ways in doing that. We also need in Guyana parks and halls of fame for people like you and others. UG, once you come into UG, Promenade Garden, these are places, have the statues and put busts of people and so on, especially people who have recognized Guyana. Now, you are 90 years of age. You look very good, Yesu. What is your secret, sir? You have longevity genes in you, and I'm confident that you will touch a century plus. I know that, and I can tell you why you can do it. The question is how. Continue to do what you are doing. I think you're doing the right thing, but you can add a few more to these. Speak to your plants. You know, every morning, get up. I thought you were speaking to your plants when I mentioned. You know why? When you speak to your plants, the future King of England, he gets up every day and speak to his plants. And you know why? You get inspiration, but you don't get any nagging. That's all right. They don't want to nag you. You can say as much as you want. Take up a hobby like golf, if you can, or find any other exercise to do for 30 minutes. And you must do moderate exercise. You can buy the static bike and ride. 30 minutes is a good glycemic control to prevent diabetes and so on. Riding, walking and stretching. This is not only for our future professor here, Yesu Persaud, but it's for everybody. Listen to me very carefully. I'm a professor of physiology, by the way. So I practice what I preach. I spent half an hour in the gym this morning before I came. Eat a heart-healthy diet. You're probably doing this now. That's why you look so good and so young. Eat a lot of vegetables. Vegetarians live longer than meat eater. You don't know. Avoid being obese and consume less sugar. We call this a monster now, the sugar problem. But sorry to say this, of course, that is our livelihood in Guyana, but this is how I'm a British, you see, and Guyanese as well. No harm in drinking a glass of red wine, but there are others, like the Eldorado. Get at least 8 hours, everybody here. 8 hours sleep daily. Get involved in activities that you like and you enjoy doing. Okay, Vice Chancellor said, should I say this or shouldn't say it? And I'm going to say it. Eat a piece of Corella. You know, and I'm going to tell you why. Just get a 6-inch Corella, cut it in 3 pieces, eat one every day. And people ask me why. It's a master drug. I can tell you this, a master drug. I make a juice out of Corellas. Take 6, chop it up, clean the inside, cut it up into a ring and make a juice. And I add a little bit of Eldorado, 15-year-old. I had a tangerine. I had a Corella, cut it all up. And I had a little bit of fruits. And I drink it every day. That's why I'm 72. So it's anti-diabetic. It's anti-aging. It's anti-hypertensive. And the most important thing of them all, and this is breast cancer week, it kills all the breast cancer cells, even the one that kills more women on earth. So guys, why pharmaceutical company interested in this is because all of us could grow medicine of our garden. It's like the marijuana. So, I'll tell you another thing. Eat a handful of nuts every day if you want to lose weight and so on. It's very good, like cashew nuts. Continue, in your food, take 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You can drink it, I take my bread. I never put butter and cheese and so on. I use olive oil. Take a baby aspirin every day. If you can't get olive oil, use virgin coconut oil. At 90, you've seen it, you've done it, and you've enjoyed life. But not really like me, you still want to go on. I would like to leave you with a few suggestions. Please set up a Dr. Yesu Persaud Foundation for Research into Business and Entrepreneurship at University of Guyana, giving 1 or 2 postgraduate fellowships to the best graduating, the brain of the day, and make sure that those who go abroad and study, they come back and serve this institution. And the Vice Chancellor is there to receive anything to make this going. He didn't tell me to say that, right? We also need the Dr. Yesu Persaud National and International School of Business and Management at UG, running a number of MBA courses, including banking, business, science, technology, industry. I went to India. They got MBA in anything. Yeah, MBA in how to make toilets, even MBA how to do this, MBA to do that. It's true, you can make so different MBAs, but do the ones that you find. And we have the professor to run it. She's sitting just near to me, Professor McLean. And I'll tell you another thing why I mention this. We can do full-time and do part-time. Imagine if you charge each student 2,000 or 3,000 pounds. We have national and international students online in some case, and we charge them 3,000 pounds per student. And by 3 years' time, we have 3,000 students. So 3 times 3, 9 million pounds. If you spend half of that to pay for the teachers to run the course, you still have £5 million profit, Vice Chancellor. The same thing for medicine. If we bring in, did you know that I was a candidate in 2012 for the Vice Chancellorship? And of course, I mean, unfortunately, but sometimes fortunate, I was unfortunate, but it doesn't matter. My friend is here. He could do everything which I couldn't do. We could set up a medical. Why take 20 and 30 students, training them at UG, when you can take 50, 100 and charge them 15? If Texila can make 5 million a year, what are we doing? My university made 100 million a year in foreign students, and through me they bring in 10 million, because I set up a whole set of courses in India and all over the world. So these are some of the things which we can do. Remember that any award where Dr. Yesu Persaud's name is mentioned is a prestigious award. Your name is a magnet for UG, a gold stamp award, and anything you touch turns into gold. I'm going to finish now, Paloma. Just one more, please. I'd like you to do something else, Dr. Yesu Persaud. Be like, in England, you'd be Sir Yesu Persaud or Lord Yesu Persaud. Just like Lord Sugar or Sir Alan Sugar. Alan. Why don't we set up an apprentice program, TV program, and you will run it, and we look for the brightest of the brightest Guyanese to do this. And we can do this in collaboration with the University of Guyana. Set up the Dr. Yesu Persaud Award for the bright young graduates from the University of Guyana. But this one I would like them to do, and UG, and you through your donation. We have 100, whatever, a certain amount of money, and all the bright kids who have done when they have an idea, we give them some money to get the ideas going, like the Prince Charles Award, the Duke of Edinburgh Award. And when we take 50% if they do very well, we can then become a millionaire, and that money will come and help us. We set up a science park at UG, and I'm going to finish now. Finally, and I mean finally, in my opinion, sir, if you had taken up politics as a career, you would have been one of our greatest leaders, transforming Guyana by now to an almost developed country because of your vision. There is still time, sir. God bless you, my big brother, and we pray that you reach a century plus and be a happy life. Thank you very much. Sorry for overtaking you.
In the interest of time, I crave your indulgence, but also ask the following speakers to, if possible, if they could utilize 5 rather than 7 minutes, I would certainly appreciate it. Our next speaker is Mr. Stanley May.
Chairman, distinguished guests, fellow Guyanese, Dr. Yesu Persaud. Like Dr. Yesu Persaud and my good friend Joe, who started life living, in Yesu's case, as OG, and Joe in a range house, my family lives slightly upmarket. We were in a little cottage in a tenement yard on Public Road, Kitty. So I started a little bit up. Not knowing very much myself as I was growing up, I adopted a very early strategy to find people that can do the work that I needed to be done and to advise me, because I tended to be lazy. The first person I turned to teach me as I was growing up was my mother, and this is in no particular order. The second person I turned to was Bert, whenever I had an engineering issue to deal with. Any issue I had to do with learning about Guyana, I turned to Joe, and that's Joe Singh. Any business about learning about the politics of Guyana, I turned to Hugh Chumley, who is now deceased. And anything about business, I turned to Yesu Persaud. Now I'm going to tell you that I knew Yesu for just over 30 years. And I'm not going to try to put any dates or times on what we've done, because I'm at the age where the early stages of Alzheimer's, which is known as half-Zymers, or in Bert's case, he says sometimes. So I'm not going to attempt to give you exact dates or times. Over the years, I've had many quiet discussions with Yesu at his office, and I took a lot of cues from him. I recognize his humility and his simplicity, his determination to succeed, and he was always very focused. And I can tell you, I applied all of those, and it has worked for me too. Yesu also, over the years, I've met not only him, but members of his staff, and he always surrounded himself with the best people. I did the same over the years of doing business. but for a different reason, because again, I wanted to be lazy. To get good people to do the work for you. I came up with the crazy ideas and they expedited. Yesu has practiced what we would hope politicians would do for countries, whether it's our own or businessmen. And that is to practice visionary servant leadership. Yesu, you're a prime example of that. Over the years, I've been on many trips with Yesu around the world, promoting Guyana as a country to do business with. I remember one such trip many years ago when we went to South Korea to encourage the Koreans in the case of Sangkyang, out of which came Barama many years ago. On a personal note, I can tell you, Yesu I looked up to because Yesu never thought inside the box, nor outside the box. Yesu built new boxes. That was his policy. And I remember sometime quite a while ago, I was in China. I remember I was in the Beijing hotel. It was 1 a.m. in the morning. And my accounts manager called me to tell me that there was a problem with the bank that we were dealing with at the time with establishing a letter of credit. And because of my political affiliation, I was being penalized to some extent. I won't tell you the name of the bank. But Yesu was all behind me after he opened the Demerara Bank to start doing my major business with him. So I said to my accounts manager, give me a few minutes and I'll get back to you. I called Yesu and I said, Yesu, this is the situation. And I think I might have to start dealing with Demerara Bank. And I told him what it was. And he said, let's deal with it right now. I said, so what are we going to do? He says, call your accounts manager, tell her to write whatever check it is to pay off the other bank, and Demerara Bank will honor it. And that was done. And I'm sure many others had similar experiences with Yesu. And when I came back to Guyana, I said, Yesu, we now have to put the necessary guarantees and stuff in place. And I can tell you, I had to get behind him to get it done because it took him almost a year to get it all done. But that's the kind of person Yesu has been to me, and I'm sure to many others. Now, many of you know, and it's said before, that Yesu was very pivotal when the Guard movement was formed with the Carter Center. And I can tell you a story that only one other person other than Yesu and I know, because he's my fellow partner in crime here, Eric Phillips, back in the early 90s, when, after the Guard movement, we brought a public relations person from Washington because we felt Yesu would have made a difference in the political landscape. So we went to his office and we tried to convince him to get into active politics. We spent about an hour and we couldn't convince him. So he said, I said to him, can we meet you again another day? He says, unfortunately, I'm leaving the country tomorrow. So I said, well, yeah, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pick you up at home with my colleague and the person from Washington, and I'll take you to the airport, and we'll talk about this some more. Now, it's history now. Yesu didn't take the lead up from us, and he continued to do what he does best, which is being an entrepreneur. And I personally believe, and I say this very openly, that if Yesu gotten into active politics to help to chart a course for Guyana many years ago, Guyana would have been a very different country today. I personally believe that. Not taking lead up, well, from us, Eric and I decided, I think it was in 2000, that we were going to get into politics to try to see if we could change the culture that we hoped Yesu would have done. And we formed a reform component which became PNC Reform when we made the alliance. And people say to me, at the end of this stint in 2006, Stanley, what made you get into politics? And I said to them, you know, back in 1971, I was racing motorcycles then, and I had a failure of a motorcycle engine. and fell off and crashed at 110 miles an hour. And I was pronounced dead. And 9 minutes later, to the horror of everybody, I woke up. So I say that people who ask me that question, I got into politics as a result of the delayed effect of brain damage. Yesu, in closing, I think I've stayed within my time. I just want to say to you, you and I have had many great conversations in the quiet of your office. You still owe me one bit of advice, and that is, what are the secrets of your good health and continued prosperity? I thank you.
Moving right along, thank you, Mr. Ling. We will now call upon Ms. Isabel de Caries of the Moray House Trust.
Good afternoon, and I am cognizant that it is good afternoon, so I will try to race along. You've all been here quite some time. I'll start. The late Kofi Annan once said, "I am often asked, what can people do to become a good global citizen? I reply that it begins in your own community." In other words, the qualities that make a good global citizen are essentially the same as the ones that make a good citizen. Like many here, I suspect I have known Dr. Persaud for most of my life. Along with many of you, I have also had the privilege of working alongside him. Yesu is a natural leader. When you work with him, you soon realize that the depth of his experience is matched only by the breadth of his acquaintance. He knows everyone, and he is prepared to work with almost everyone. He is a natural consensus builder, a key skill in a fractured society. He has a clear vision for Guyana, and his work has given shape to that vision. Delivering a lecture about Guyana's literary heritage in 1960, A.J. Seymour concluded thus: "There is one question I have asked myself. What has been the most powerful application of ideas to Guyanese society? We're always seeking for pointers from the past to lead us into the future. Are we always to be beguiled by the El Dorado myth, the idea of easy discovery of wealth, which lures us on and which seems to dispose of the necessity for hard work? We can also ask, what man's vision of our future has been most penetrating? Let us look at a few possibilities and compare them one against the other." This is still Seymour. There is Greg Zandi's ceaseless work of 40 years in the middle of the 18th century, developing our mineral potential, promoting immigration from the West Indies, settling our boundaries, integrating the Amerindians into community life. There is Jock Campbell's revolution from within of the Booker's empire which he inherited, so that the large, complex organization became more of a force to develop Guyana and Guyanese potential. These are but a few of the visions affecting us all and our future. As our Guyanese graduates return home with quickened minds, they will bring to bear upon our society the full power of their wills and intellects, and we shall have more visions before us to lead us into the future. All of this in 1960. As the law of El Dorado resurfaces in the guise of oil wealth, it's worth deliberating a little on Mr. Seymour's words. In the 1960s, as an infant nation, our leaders had to choose whether to persevere with what we had inherited or to start afresh. There were innovations and accommodations, a break with the past in some areas and a cementing of certain habits in others. Many of Guyana's political leaders did indeed spend time abroad as students and graduates. Their trajectory, their visions for Guyana, and their attempts to shape our society are well known. And yet, leaders can arise in many walks of life. Let us follow then the path of another Guyanese graduate who returned from the UK in 1966 at a pivotal moment in our nation's history, and who would also apply his will and intellect to shaping the society. Yesu had by then spent a decade in the United Kingdom, ultimately training and qualifying as an accountant and then an auditor. Before he left the colony, he'd held several jobs, including as a supervisor at Diamond Estate, the place where he was born. Recalling his childhood, he once said, "Growing up on a sugar estate, the influences were different. Like me, most of the children grew up in surroundings of lodges, where all the people lived together, and whenever there was a religious ceremony or celebrations, everyone took part. This brought people closer together, despite the fact that they belonged to different religions and were of different races." Yesu has often been hailed, no more so than this morning perhaps, as a business icon, serial entrepreneur, the architect of a significant slice of our economy, a dedicated philanthropist, and arguably a rare species anywhere, a businessman with backbone, someone unafraid to speak truth to power, even if the message was likely to be delivered in his customary warm and engaging tones. We have heard extensive comment on these roles, so I won't presume further. As a bit of a generalist, I'd like to look past the individual to the institutions he created, to consider his role as a builder, a master builder in fact, of local institutions. This, along with a certain tenacity, is the common thread that links these roles. He worked at DDL for 50 years, started iPad 32 years ago, and Demerara Bank, over which he still presides, opened the doors of its first branch almost a quarter of a century ago. A brief look at one of these institutions will serve to illustrate the point. iPad, as we have heard, grew from a commitment to help his countrymen and a conviction that there was a need to, in his words, recreate the private sector and rekindle the entrepreneurial spirit after the socialist experiments of the 1970s and 80s. When iPad began, the concept of offering microcredit to nurture micro-entrepreneurs was not, as it is today, part of mainstream development theory. Let's also place this in a broader context. In Europe, for example, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, continue to provide 2 of every 3 jobs and account for over half of business activity. Even Germany, an acknowledged economic powerhouse, has a core of more than 3 million SMEs, called Mittelstand, and I apologize for my pronunciation. It is also worth remembering that Yesu's skills in institution building were honed at a time when many of our public institutions were decaying or falling victim to graft, cronyism, neglect, and abuse. In other words, he was working against the drift of our history, creating time after time many ecosystems or subcultures that could function within the larger sphere and withstand the uncertainty and upheaval that characterize the times, developing world-class distribution networks, products, and services in an economy still underpinned by sugar, bauxite, gold, and lumber. This is a truly remarkable achievement. The fallout from that era, however, continues. Look at any section of our society, from local government administration to sports clubs, and you will see institutions in disarray, subfunctional or dysfunctional, a prisoner to special interests, riven by discord and vulnerable to graft. These are all symptoms of a deeper malaise. We lack a historical memory of strong, independent, and efficient public institutions. So each time we try to create one, we must start from scratch. At this point in our history, we are again at a crossroads as regards our institutions. There is a general consensus that many are in need of overhaul. Some of us have also warned that oil revenues will represent the ultimate stress test for our public institutions. There is little sign at present that we are prepared. Of course, there is no shortage of suitors from abroad to provide solutions. What Yesu's work shows is that we can do it. There are viable indigenous models for our institutions, models that take account of our local peculiarities, that harness what A.J. Seymour, in a slightly different context, referred to as the genius of the place. Though we pay lip service to the importance of human capital, we have a tendency in Guyana to undervalue our own local stock. Professor Clive Thomas cautioned recently when writing about the Sovereign Wealth Fund that we should not automatically look for off-the-shelf or imported models for our institutions. That will not always work. Sometimes we must build our own. This, perhaps, is the ultimate legacy that Yesu leaves. He is the rarest of blends, visionary, strategist, and pragmatist, able to conceive a future for this country and to engage a host of others in helping to deliver it, able to see us not just as the passive recipients of the forces of history, but the agents of our own destinies as well, to use Seymour's words. Yesu, while exceptional, is not alone. There are others in our society who have acquired a deep knowledge of the specific needs and conditions here, who have the habit of building consensus and functioning as leaders in our society, and who can articulate a vision for the society. Perhaps we can institutionalize some of this human capital. Allow me therefore to conclude with a suggestion. About 10 years ago, Nelson Mandela was instrumental in the formation of the Elders, an initiative centered around a handful of independent global leaders. There were some criteria for eligibility. According to the website, elders no longer hold public office, they are independent of any national government or any other vested interest. They should have earned international trust, demonstrated integrity, and built a reputation for inclusive, progressive leadership. In Guyana, we have a National Youth Council. What about forming a National Council of Elders? What about tasking them and the Youth Council with a joint redrafting of the National Development Strategy, perhaps with an initial focus on the crisis in our education system, the challenges facing our agriculture sector, and a blueprint for infrastructure and energy? This work need not supply the plans and policies flowing from the government of the day, but it could perhaps help to frame them. Robust and independent institutions are one of the key checks and balances in a democracy. When public institutions are undermined, a cult of personality steps into the void created. The late Kofi Annan, and I circle back to him, who was at one point the chair of the Elders, said this in tribute to Mandela. On a continent cursed by the blight of the big man leader, Mandela, our one leader deserving of that status, rejected the rule of strongman in favor of a commitment to establishing lasting democratic institutions. At every juncture, when he could have made the struggle and the ultimate victory over apartheid about himself, he invested his authority in building a party, a state, and a rule of law that was greater than any individual. In a low-trust society, we will not rebuild faith in our public institutions overnight. A first step, though, might be to try to harness the counsel of citizens like Dr. Persaud, who have demonstrated the strategic vision and ability to build durable and resilient institutions here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now ask Mr. Eric Phillips to offer his comments.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. My dear brother Yesu, my mentor, Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests. Much has been said about Yesu over the last few hours and days, and I can personally attest that all these virtues, values, and accomplishments are indeed fascinating. So I decided to spend my few minutes to focus on some areas which have been the unbreakable bond between Yesu and myself. Given my known advocacy for shared governance and good governance and for the human rights of African Guyanese, some may find it strange that there is a very strong bond between Yesu and myself. A bond that is very deep, so deep that I try to meet Yesu once a week if possible. And these meetings are some of my best intellectual and motivational times in Guyana. I view Yesu as a dear friend and a big brother. Of course, we're both Librans. He's the 18th of October, I'm the 19th. And so we share those Libra values of balance and justice and outspokenness, which oftentimes gets us into trouble. Underlying our deep respect for each other is our quest for a government of national issue. national unity. Yesu's been in my life for almost 25 years. First, in 2008, Yesu was the first private sector CEO to step forward when the IDB funded a program called Improving Access to Opportunities for At-Risk Youth in Afro-Descendant Communities. We had 36 young people, equally male and female, from Agricola, Boystown, and Buxton. And even though the government refused to support that program, Yesu not only opened his arms and spoke to them, he invited them to both IPED and DDR. Just after that program was over, Yesu funded 2 scholarships for those young people. And I must say, Yesu, of those 36 people, young people, 3 became engineers, 2 became lawyers, and 70% of them went to university. This from a place of hopelessness. Yesu has continued to fund many scholarships for African Guyanese. And so today, we honor a man who epitomizes the philosophy that John Gardner, the founder of the White House Fellows Program, did and said. He said, a society that scorns excellence in plumbing as a humble activity and tolerates shoddiness in philosophy because it's an exalted activity will have neither good plumbing nor good philosophy. Neither its pipes nor its theories will hold water. Yesu, I salute you for believing in excellence and in believing in people. Emancipation Indian Arrival Day. Yesu religiously every year contributes not only to emancipation, but attends and reciprocally invites me to the Indian Gardens, Memory Gardens, on May 5th, so that we can continue growing a bond of finding a way to make Guyana not only heal itself, but to seek a government of national unity. University of Guyana, and I'm trying to shorten what I've written. Yesu has visited my classes at the University of Guyana at least 6 times. He is always perceived as an icon, and our students relish him being there. Yesu, your attitude towards education, your attitude towards youth, makes you a unique character in our society. And I hope that young people of Guyana come to learn about you, because you are indeed an icon. You're indeed someone that all Guyanese need to know. I'd like to spend the remaining few minutes on Yesu's dream, a dream that I also share. And that is a dream of national unity and racial harmony in Guyana. Guyana needs a government of national unity if we are to succeed, especially with oil and with the racial divide that we have. Yesu has fought for this in so many ways, and he has helped me to understand this. One of his most daring acts was to invite me to be the only non-Indian speaker at the 150th anniversary of the arrival of Indians in Guyana, 175th anniversary, a few years ago. And he allowed me to speak my piece and to speak my words. And I said many things that were controversial, but Yesu knows and knew that we have to speak these truths if we are indeed to become a nation that has a future. For Guyana to move forward, Yesu would tell me in my weekly meetings, we need a nation-building value system centered on common bonding, common vision, shared values, and shared goals. I hope that one day our politicians can give this gift of love to our nation. Sadly, I ask the question when I leave Yesu, where are our moral and religious leaders? Where are our men and women of grace, courage, and integrity to fight for a government of national unity? Where are the men of courage in the religious community in Guyana? Where are our Mother Teresa's, our Mahatma Gandhi's, our Martin Luther Kings, our Daihatsu Ikidas, our Desmond Tutus, our Jiddu Krishnamurtis, and our Nelson Mandelas. Where are our Yesu Persauds? We need more Yesu Persauds. Yesu and I both believe that shared governance and a government of national unity is a fundamental human right for all Guyanese. We unconditionally believe this. Guyana needs servant leaders like Yesu. He is one of a few. Yes, without debate, without controversy, Yesu is one of our greatest sons. His entrepreneurial exploits are iconic. His humility is well known. And as I said at the Mandir on Sunday, which I attend every year for his birthday, Yesu is a special gift to Guyana. G is for his grace, I for his intellect and integrity, F for his fortitude, T for the times he stood up to represent us. He's a man of our times, a spirit and personality to be admired and embraced. My good friend, I'm honored to have been asked to speak on your 90th birthday and to honor you as a servant leader. Master of Ceremonies, I expect of you to invite me to Yesu's 100th birthday. And as I leave this today with you, Yesu, an old Irish blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun always shine warmly in your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hands. Thank you for the wisdom and kindness you have offered me and all in my community. Guyana is a better place because of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to start with former Prime Minister Hines.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Thank you very much, all of you, for this time to join in extending greetings, best wishes to Mr. Yesu Persaud. I got to know him, first of all, as the gentleman who got private enterprise going again, and particularly small business in the early days of the SME, and maybe my channel to that and to him was, I think, Leslie Chick, who was a big boy when I went to school in 55, 11 years old. And at that time, I paid great attention to what the Chinese were doing. And they at that time were maybe the experts in small and medium enterprises. And then a number of years later, I got encouraged by another old school friend, Mr. Clement Lai. He called me up and he said, we're launching GUIDE officially in 3 places: Parade Ground, Dutchess Boats Landing in Linden, somewhere I think in Rosal, and Yesu is going to be moving from one to the other to the other. He's going to be initiating all 3 that day, and we'd like you to join in Linden. And I accepted. Maybe I was a bit daring and risky then, because 2 days before I had accepted another call to speak on the 10th anniversary of the passing of Walter Rodney. And so in 2 days, on the second day after I was there on the Dutchess Boat Landing, I kept on speaking with Guard, and then 2 trends of thinking seemed to be developing. One was fair and free elections is what we want and what we must have. But some groups, some persons seem to be saying, yes, fair and free election, and whoever wins, wins. And some others seem to be inclined to the view, fair and free elections, but Lord helps us not PPP, not Chetty Jagan. And I stood very much for the fair and free elections. Whoever wins. If it is Chetty and the PPP, so be it. And the history, what follows is well known. So I want to extend my thanks to Yesu for being, for me, an icon in developing small and medium scale enterprises in Guyana, particularly for the small people, and also in creating the bridge, maybe being the catalyst to get me from being a good, solid engineer to being a possible politician. And maybe, Yesu, maybe if you get into politics, maybe then I could return the favor and say it and tell you about my experiences in politics. Thank you very much.
Could we have Mr. Suvan, please? I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that you had arrived.
My presentation is to basically capture in some way Mr. Persaud's contribution to the development and preservation of the Indo-Guyanese culture, and what he stood for in that regard. I hope to do this through aspects of interactions between us over time, working towards that common objective. Sometimes we shared a common position, sometimes we didn't, and I guess that in itself is natural in life. To say that he's an activist for the development and preservation of Indian culture would be a dilution of what would have transpired over the decades within the context. He wasn't someone who just led the process. He envisioned it, not just for the moment it was intended, but for longevity. That aspect of his mindset, I'm sure, would find common ground among us. In the mid-80s, I was obviously much younger, and a laboratory technician with the Guyana Sugar Corporation Central Lab, which was situated in the upper floors of the Guyana Stores complex. If my memory serves me right, Mr. Persaud, I think he would have served in the capacity as deputy chairman of Gaisuko around that time. At least I would have seen it in one of the reports. One of the things that really held my interest at Gaisuko was the presence of a drama group. Having joined and given my passion, I learned it was one of the more prestigious theater groups at that time, with President Desmond Hoyt being the patron. It was through that group that I made my professional debut as an actor, and at the same time realizing my childhood dream of performing at the National Cultural Center. One may ask the relevance of this to the proceedings here. In reflecting, I want to believe there was a nexus between the high standards and professionalism of that drama group and Mr. Persaud, characteristics that embodied him. While I'm not sure he had a direct role, I want to believe that his association with the company would have rubbed off. 1988 was a landmark year for the arrival of Indian indentured workers here in Guyana. It was the 150th anniversary. I was in awe when I heard that the Vice President of India and Bollywood celebrities and the likes of actor Farooq Sheikh and actress Sangeeta Bijlani and others would be part of a large team from India to visit Guyana for that occasion. They came, they performed, they enthralled. May that year was like none other. In my opinion, that historic occasion gave impetus, confidence, relevance, and importance to the commemoration of Indian arrival in Guyana. In the 30 years since, we have seen a vast increase in the number of new Indian organizations, generally with the objective of fostering and preserving various aspects of that rich and diverse culture. The IAC, of which I'm a member, is one. That event in May that year was a catalyst in the context of Indian cultural awareness, and it invoked pride, even when despair seemed to hover. To achieve that could not have been easy, especially during a time not devoid of challenges. It would have taken vision and will, and therefore it is not by coincidence that Mr. Persaud was at the helm of those events, which must be seen as one of the turning points in the context of our cultural development. Among the activities was a musical drama entitled The Journey, which provided a window into what it was like for Indian indentured workers as they crossed the Kalapani, the dark waters. It was timely and edifying as the dark tales unfolded. I was in the audience, and as a young artist, I was mesmerized by the realism through intricate settings and wondered how the director managed such a large cast, probably over 100. While I was hooked at the magnitude of the production, there was little surprise given who was leading the process. While there were activities prior to 1988 to mark the anniversary of Indian arrival, I believe there was a renewed sense of pride and enthusiasm among Indo-Guyanese and those eager to make a contribution towards the promotion of Indian culture following events that year. What it showed was that he was not just consumed with the business aspect of his life, being a corporate head of one of the largest companies in the country, but made it a priority of his to promote and develop Indian culture while gathering like minds in the process. Often, that's what it takes for a society to transform. I would want to believe that his humble beginnings would have been a strong influence for his contributions to the development of Indo-Guyanese culture, which aided the enrichment of our national cultural landscape as integral in that mosaic. I also want to believe that while the focus was on the specific activities 30 years ago, the forward thinking had to be forced, as vindicated by what has positively redounded since, including the establishment of the Monument Garden. Today, there's a plethora of activities across the country by numerous organizations, big and small. In our generation, much of that has been as a result of the efforts of Mr. Persaud. In September of 1988, I had the privilege and the extremely daunting task of adapting and directing the 1954 Bollywood religious epic film Tulsidas for stage at the National Cultural Center. It was made even more complex, knowing that a Muslim was producing and directing the story of the saint who translated the Hindu holy book, the Ramayana, from Sanskrit to Hindi. The journey of realizing Tulsidas brought me to the office of Mr. Komal Samru, who played a pivotal role behind the scenes in the play's success. DDL, synonymous with Mr. Persaud, was a major sponsor. At the end of the play, while I was leaving the Cultural Center, I got a script and I was told I am being selected to direct The Journey Part 2 under the auspices of the 150th Anniversary Committee headed by Mr. Persaud for staging in January 1989, just about 3 months away. I was in shock that I was considered to lead such a project, and I was told that it was Mr. Persaud who would have been instrumental in contributing to my state of shock. At that age and at that time, there was no way in my wildest imagination I would have envisaged a minion like me being given such a prestigious task by no other but a giant like Mr. Persaud. That profound sense of awe quickly turned to worry as reality stepped in. Could I live up to his expectations and the others of that esteemed group? That pressured me to strive for the highest standard possible, and relief was only felt at the end of the performance. I recalled 2 things. Among them, I have a throat problem. During the period of that day, during the period of that play, one evening Mr. Persaud visited the rehearsal and at some point raised concern over a particular aspect of what was unfolding. His concern was basically over authenticity of information that was used to write the script. A vibrant discussion ensued among some members of the group, to the point I had to suspend the rehearsal as opinions were traded. To say there was agreement would be in the realms of fake news. Could you imagine the mindset of a poor country boy whose prized asset at that moment seemed an overwhelming sense of inferiority complex? Not only was I in the presence of the Indo-Guyanese leaders in society, but I somehow felt I was responsible for what was happening. In the end, rehearsals were suspended for a few days until historians could authenticate the information. Secondly, Mr. Persaud was structured to deliver brief remarks on the opening night. Generally, the guest of honor turns up on performance night and is called to speak. Not Mr. Persaud, at least on that occasion. He turned up on the night of the grand rehearsal to rehearse his speech. I didn't expect that. I was unsure how to react. It did cross my mind fleetingly that it could have been an imposition of authority. I never saw that before, even after. I saw a substitute for such at rehearsals during my years in the media. Clearly, there are profound lessons from those two incidents. Mr. Persaud wanted to ensure accuracy of what was going to be portrayed with regard to our history, which is extremely important, especially today. Drama edifies, and accuracy in historical projects must not be compromised. He was obviously concerned about that, and he stood his ground. Also, he had to be a perfectionist, or one who strived hard for it, given the utmost respect he demonstrated for the necessary processes in staging a performance. That must have compelled him to rehearse his speech, even though it wasn't necessary. It was a demonstration of the finer details being accounted for. Those qualities left an impression on me, and like every director, we strive for perfection, even though it is elusive. The opportunity to direct The Journey Part 2 also expanded my creativity, not only in stagecraft, but offered lessons on how to manage a large cast, close to 200. That opportunity given to me by Mr. Persaud helped to develop my skills through every play I did afterwards, including popular Bollywood movies like Dosti and Bhagwan. I wasn't the only one. I'm one of many who will have benefited and influenced by him to build capacity for the furtherance of the Indo-Guyanese culture. I also worked at the laboratory at the Diamond Distillery, and I witnessed the forward thinking of the company he led through the establishment of the carbon dioxide plant. That forward thinking is also critical for cultural development. For today, we see strategic programming and planning of activities for the various events, hallmarks of Mr. Persaud. 2013 marked the 175th anniversary of Indian arrival in Guyana and the 250th of the Burmese slave uprising. I recall the Bank of Guyana issuing commemorative coins for both occasions, which were just months apart. 2 persons were chosen from the Indo-Guyanese community to receive the special coins, for which I understood to be recognition of their contributions to the development of Indian culture. I sat in the audience as Mr. Persaud received his. There was no need to be convinced of the human service he gave to the development of Indian culture in Guyana, and which he continues to do. He's a Hindu, and I would have seen him on occasions participating in Islamic Eid festivals at the Peter's Hall's Mosque. I would want to believe that such participation was not confined just to that particular mosque. At that moment, I recall him interviewing me a few years prior on his television program to discuss my contributions to the development of Indo-Guyanese culture. I always felt that should have been the other way around. Humbled, I saw that as a demonstration of humility by a national icon. I also recalled the moments we differed on national issues. Even in those moments, respect and professionalism on his part were never compromised. As I watched him receiving that commemorative coin, my inferiority complex intensified, and I was next to collect, wondering if a mistake was made to cause me to be in such company. I knew the recognition by the Bank of Guyana to Mr. Persaud was a reflection of how Indo-Guyanese and the country at large felt about his selfless dedication to the preservation of culture. 5 years after, those sentiments have gotten stronger, as exemplified by this event. Thank you for your contributions, Mr. Persaud.
Thank you, Mr. Suhead. Colleagues, unfortunately, time is not our friend at this point in time. We are running way over our schedule and we do have competing responsibilities. However, at this time, I call upon the Vice Chancellor to offer his remarks. We will also be making a small presentation to Dr. Persaud. Then there will be some closing remarks by Mr. Norwell Hines, and we invite you to a light lunch, which will be served on the open patio.
Before I do the formal presentation of a small tribute token to Yesu Persaud, allow me the opportunity to do two things. First of which is to ask you to join me in thanking everyone involved in organizing this. Something like this just happened. It took a lot of people, led by DVC Paloma Mohamed, with input from the Dean of the School of SEBI. It took a lot of input by people who sponsored. It took also the preparation, evidence of which we all witnessed, and the people who served in the panel. So shall we collectively give them a round? I also want to invite you to keep the program that you have and be mindful of what's at the back. At the back is a list of future events that we're hosting, some by ourselves, some in partnership. And there is one that is particularly interested in having you come to 2 days from now, Thursday. We'll be launching the Institute of Food and Nutrition Security at the University of Guyana. And I invite you to come to that symposium to do the launch at the Audacious Conference Center. Starts at 9, it goes until 4:30. Audacious Conference Center, Thursday the 25th. One of the things that we've adopted as part of Project Renaissance is to enable greater respect for the arts, enable contributions to rebuilding the arts. And I want to thank not only that effort, but the effort of many of our students and graduates. This double portrait is done by one of our own graduates, Michael Griffith. I don't know if he's around, but wonderful talent. And I simply wanted, on behalf of Yesu, for you to join and have a picture. We'll hold it, it's pretty heavy, but it's a small token of our appreciation. Small token of appreciation. The movie star, Yesu Persaud of then, and the still iconic movie star grandfather, Yesu Persaud, as of now. A round of applause for Yesu Persaud.
Immediate past president of the University of Guyana Student Society, and today I've been asked to deputize on behalf of Ms. Defta Ramu, the current president of the University of Guyana Student Society, in fact, the first woman in 16 years, third woman in the history of the university to be president of the Student Society, to express appreciation on her behalf on this occasion that we honor the life and work of Dr. Yesu Persaud. I want to start by saying for myself, having had to do a little bit of reading and research in preparation for this event, that there were quite a lot of lessons in your life, Dr. Persaud. And I want to start first by thanking you for your life of service, for your gift of humanity and your gift that keeps giving to the universe and to the country. In fact, in reading, I felt that a lot of parts of your story could easily be a best-selling Times book. In fact, I think one newspaper actually says that, and even a blockbuster movie. The love story that was there between you and your wife, the journey to becoming who you are. I think those are extraordinary things that demonstrate tenacity and perseverance. In fact, recall that the vision for Demara Bank was a 1960s vision that was realized in 1992 and launched in 1994. So this more than 50 years of service and almost 70 years of marriage is particularly examples for us as Guyanese young people. And therefore we want to thank the University of Guyana, the 10th Vice Chancellor, Professor Ivelaw Griffith, Professor Paloma Mohamed, the BBC for Philanthropy, Academic Affairs and Civic Engagement, Professor Leyland Lucas, Dean of the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, the speakers who contributed to today's event. Already you know who they are and their reflections. Special thanks to the Institute of Private Enterprise Development, which Dr. Yesu Persaud founded in, well, according to whatever, 1986, the year that I was born, so long time. Demar Distillers Limited, DDL, Gaffors, the staff of the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, the Deputy Vice Chancellor's staff, Ms. Ephesia S. Brandt, Ms. Travona Aziz, Ms. Christine Chalgier, Ms. Merlin Gopal, Ms. Tara Smith, Ms. Garrett Trotman, Mr. Norrell Hines and other interns, Chanelli Wilson, Shamari Williams, and Kerry Hooper, Ms. Gwyneth George and staff of the University of Guyana Library that put on an excellent display, an exhibition of your work, Dr. Persaud. Ms. Paulette Paul, the PRO of the University of Guyana, the staff of the Learning Resource Center of the University of Guyana, the personnel officer, Mr. Jeffrey Walcott, Mr. Neil Suklal, and staff of Impressions Inc., staff of DD Signs, the Pegasus Hotel, the government agency, National Data Management Authority, Ms. Ram Logan, and the staff of the Pegasus. And of course, we're grateful for the work of those members of the university community who serve today as ushers, and to you, the civil society participants who graced us with their presence, and those in the online audience. I also wish to take the opportunity on behalf of Ms. Dave Rammer to say to you that the University of Guyana Student Society is considering, and in fact soon will announce, the naming of one of their rooms in their just established student complex in your honor, Dr. Yesu Persaud. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines, and may I finally say on behalf of the University of Guyana, the School of Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, and on behalf of Dr. Paloma Mohamed and her colleagues in her unit, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Dr. Persaud, we look forward to celebrating your 100th birthday. We look forward to your continued contribution to all aspects of Guyanese society. And as so many of the speakers have indicated, may your service as a human being, locally and globally, be a shining example for us all to follow. Friends, at this point in time, I once again invite you to join us for lunch in the open up area. And again, thank you, and we look forward to your presence on Thursday at the launch of the Institute for Food and Nutrition Studies. Thank you.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is with struggle.